Warning: this video is not for the faint of heart. If you are afraid of the dark or horror, we advise you not to watch. Prepare yourself for an experience that may turn your night upside down. But if you are a horror lover, you are in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button for more excitement.
On a stormy night with rain accompanied by fierce winds, the creature was born. A mere failed experiment by a mad scientist in an isolated laboratory. Lightning illuminated the sky in a terrifying manner, and thunder roared as if warning of a diabolical birth. The scientist, known as Bravis, was infamous for his obsession with dark magic and forbidden experiments. The experiment was a blend of human and animal parts. He sought to achieve immortality and gain control over unimaginable forces. Bravis employed ancient methods and the most ruthless tools of sorcery, but all his attempts had failed until that fateful night. As flames erupted from the laboratory, strange and terrifying sounds began to fill the air. They emanated from the electric arc surrounding the tormented creature, and when the storm subsided, the deformed being emerged before his eyes. A grotesque amalgamation of human and animal parts beyond belief. His eyes gleamed with the fires of madness, and his limbs swayed in his deformed frame. Life pulsed within him in an unnatural way, as if a mixture of guts and spirits surged within his depths. This is how Parvis's nightmare began, where there was no contemplation for this horrifying entity that had become a prisoner of its desires and bloodthirsty hunger, hungry to impose its evil presence in the world of the living. Parvis did not realize the danger he had brought into this world when the experiment turned into an uncontrollable nightmare. He stood there, staring at the creature he had created with his own flawed hands, anxiously awaiting any sign of its vitality or behavior. But instead of quiet contemplation, the creature began to move slowly toward Parvis, its heavy footsteps echoing on the damp ground. Its fiery eyes gleamed fiercely, staring at the doctor with a gaze that reflected the deadly whispers of its hidden power. The reckless Parvis tried to control the terror creeping into his heart. He shouted louder into the cold air, but his voice was mingled with fear and despair. But the creature neither understood nor cared, and with a sudden movement, it lunged at Parvis, gripping him with a powerful hold. He felt the cold, intertwined fingers slither around his neck like a deadly snake coiling around its prey. As Parvis attempted to scream, the creature covered his mouth with a massive bony hand. A sharp crack split his neck, sending him crashing to the ground. His muffled cries faded into the distant void, preventing any sound from being heard. The malevolent force consumed Parvis with an indescribable fury, tearing apart all his wicked instincts. From there, the creature stormed into the streets. The night was dark and foggy, the streets deserted. The dim streetlights cast strange shadows on the crumbling walls. His first victim that night was a young man returning from work. Hearing footsteps behind him, he turned to find a deformed creature standing before him, its eyes gleaming with hunger. He tried to run, but the ravenous body was faster, grabbing him and dragging him into the darkness. There was no time to scream as the creature quickly covered his mouth. The ravenous body reveled in tearing apart the flesh of its victim, relishing the sound of bones snapping and entrails scattering. The horrific details of every bite and every wound made the screams rise into the cold night sky. The ravenous body tore apart the organs one by one, savoring every piece. As the sun rose, people began to notice the disappearance of several individuals, and stories of the ravenous body spread. The police were powerless to identify or stop the culprit. Fear grew in the city, and with it, the hunger of the ravenous body intensified. One night, the creature found its next victim, a young woman walking alone. She planned to return home quickly but felt something strange following her. When she tried to speed up, the ravenous body blocked her path. Her screams echoed into the night, but there was no one to hear them. He took her to his lair, an abandoned room in an old building. The walls were splattered with the blood of previous victims, and the floor was littered with scattered bones. The slow dismemberment began, small, repeated bites that inflicted unbearable pain. She screamed and cried, but the ravenous body savored her screams, playing on the strings of her pain like a master musician. As days passed, the city descended into chaos and fear. People no longer ventured out at night, yet the ravenous body did not cease its hunt for new victims. Its appetite was insatiable, always searching for fresh flesh. One night, an elderly man was walking silently through the city's alleys, carrying bags of food from the market. His heavy footsteps echoed in the eerie silence, unaware that he was being watched by the red eyes of the ravenous body. As the man prepared to cross the dark corner, the ravenous body suddenly appeared like a ghost. There was no warning, no chance for defense. The creature grabbed the man with an iron grip, tearing him apart with savage brutality, as if trying to unleash all its rage and hunger on a single body. The scattered bags of food lay strewn across the ground as blood splattered with each blow. The old man's screams echoed through the empty street, but there was no one to hear. It was over quickly, and his body lay gasping its final breaths on the cold, damp ground. With every drop of blood that fell, the ravenous body felt stronger and more satiated. One night, the ravenous body broke into a home and found an entire family inside. The children screamed while the parents tried to defend them, but the ravenous body was stronger and faster. It began tearing the children apart before their parents' eyes, every scream and every tear only increasing its pleasure. The details of the attack were horrifying, with intestines scattered and blood covering the walls. The mother tried to escape, but the ravenous body caught her and began torturing her slowly, savoring every moment of her suffering. But the story did not end there. In the following weeks, the disappearances in the city increased. There was no trace of the victims, only remnants of flesh and bones found in various places. On a freezing winter night, a little girl was found walking alone on the street. She held an old doll in her hand, whispering to herself to ease the fear that surrounded her. But her tiny footsteps were barely audible in the pitch-black darkness. Suddenly, she felt something strange behind her. but she didn't dare to turn around. She knew she couldn't run. As she prepared to scream, a strong hand covered her mouth, and the ravenous body dragged her into the darkness. And so the slow dismemberment began, small bites landing on her tiny body as she silently wept under the pressure of his hand. The ravenous body delighted in every moment, savoring the act of tearing apart her soft and innocent flesh. But the ravenous body was never satisfied, always searching for more, for new flesh to quell its eternal hunger. In the following days, more children and passers-by disappeared in the city, leaving no trace of their fate. With each new disappearance, panic and fear gripped the city's residents. Rumors spread quickly, and people began to fear even their own breaths in the darkness of night. On a dark night, as the ravenous body approached another house, it found itself trapped by a police ambush. Tried to flee, but they were ready. They set it on fire and then shot at it repeatedly. It attempted to attack them, but they quickly fired again. Even as they watched it burn, the terrifying sound of its screams sent chills through their hearts. But even after everything was over, the fear lingered in the hearts of the people, wondering if the ravenous body would return or if it was truly the end.